Welcome to Telegraph Studios, where I am joined today by two legends of the game, Brian Moore, and we've got Sir Ian McGeechan. Welcome, gentlemen. And I am going to be selecting my squad and see how it compares against theirs, and we're going to have a bit of fun doing it. Here we are. This is the first selection, gentlemen, and we've got to pick our props, both loose heads and tight heads, and there may be even a possibility for someone who can play both sides of the scrum. And I'm looking at the loose heads, and I'd imagine there probably isn't too many disagreements here. I think going to go for Porter, Genge and Schoeman as my three loose heads, so you can chat away while I try
That's what I've got, and thank goodness I didn't have all those choices when I looked at it.
Well, strangely enough, I'd got the same choices as well.
Yeah, and we move on to tight head, and then you can see how I've inputted those three, and then we go. I think we'll go for three tight heads as well, because it's good to have that balance. Probably all agree. Tag furlong for me, Xander Ferguson, and I'm going to go with Will Stewart's just scrummaging par as well. And then we'll come to my seventh choice and see if you disagree or agree. Now, I was thinking about this overnight, and I'm really keen to probably have someone who can play both sides. And given the luxury that we're taking six props already, and those are both, those are strong groups of three, I'm going to go, I think, for something of a rookie with Asher Opoku Fujor. So I think he's the kind of guy that I think Andy Farrell might like, his sheer bulk and his explosive power. And I think it'll be an interesting selection, but I don't know what you two think when you went for your seventh.
I think with so many props available, I don't think you actually need to do that. A Lions place, for me, is not a place to be developing your rugby. People should go who are fighting for test jerseys. You might have one as a bolter who suddenly has a great Six Nations and you see the potential developing, but outside that, I don't think Lions is at a finishing school. It's not a finishing school.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I don't think just one or two caps or somebody you might have seen 3 or 4 times is the right approach to putting somebody up for a Lions.
Yeah. Well, do you know what, gents? I'm going to go for it. Hooker, Brian, this is again, interesting to see your thoughts. I'm going to go, I think, having thought through this. I really like the two Ireland hookers, both very strong set piece and impactful again in the loose, strong line out work. And I think my third choice, again, and I know he's going to be injured, but Dory Lake, for me, was one of the guys who has really shown a lot of leadership and a lot of, I guess, Geech, when you're looking for characters in the Lions, Wales went through a tough year last year, and he was one guy who stood up and went again and again. And, talking to Warren Gatland again, one of our columnists, he speaks very highly of this guy and as a leader as well. So those are the sort of the three names that I've going to go with there, but interested to hear your thoughts.
I don't have a problem with your choice. I'll pick Sheehan and Lake. I just put Jamie George in there because of his experience, and he's a former Lion as well. It's a very marginal call because one of them's going to be on the bench, but so I'm not disputing yours massively. I've just got a one preference.
And I had Dory Lake in as well on exactly the same basis, that the experience he brings. And I think it is important there where when you're looking at the overall squad, you do have that input from all 4 countries.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In that leadership context.
Well, let's move on to the second row, and that will lead on to the back row. And again, this is one of those interesting areas of selection where you'll have players who can double up, and it's about, I guess, trying to look at the combinations and make sure we've got deep cover. I'm going to start off with Mario Itoje and Joe McCarthy, James Ryan, the two Ireland locks. I've also gone for George Martin, who I think has had a quiet enough year, but I think he has got the physique and bulk and big scrummaging tight head, can be menacing. And I've also gone for Ollie Chesham as one of my second rows. And again, I think he's a guy who can play in the back row, bundles of energy. He's an 80-minute player. And I just think, again, on a Lions tour context, you're going to want someone like him with a lot of energy and flexibility as well. So I don't know what you think, guys, on those selections.
These again are they are so subjective, and I think there are certain positions. This in the back row is, props and hookers are, I think, much more definitive. These ones are very marginal. It's just a matter of personal preference, but I wouldn't argue particularly with what you've said.
No, and I think I would say the same logic that you need the ball players, somebody who can be a natural back four player in the forwards, but you also need somebody who's a front four player, who really adds that weight. I was impressed with Martin last year in what he brought, just in that power aspect of that real dog that you want to see in a forward.
Can I change mine?
Well, gents, let's go into the back row. My selection, guys, I've gone for Caelan Doris as one of the number 8s. I've gone for Ben Earl, again, a number 8 who can also play 7 and 6 if needed. Tag Byrne, another player who can play in the second row, gives us that flexibility. Josh van der Fleer, it's a very Irish heavy back row selection, but we've got to look at them winning the last 2 Six Nations and having won on New Zealand on tour there. And then again, Tom Curry and Jack Morgan, again, guys, can be really impactful at the breakdown, menacing ball carriers. And for me, with Chesham in the second row, I hope I've got a good mix of players. But again, it's ferociously competitive area of British and Irish rugby, really, the back row. It's one thing we do produce a lot of great talent.
I think this is where, as Brian said, when you come into the back five of the scrum, and it's the same in the backs, you can have those transitional players that give you an impetus in one area, although they're maybe first choice in another area, and I think Tad Byrne comes into that. And I think against Australia, you definitely need the extra line out.
I picked Reffel partly for the national balance, but I think over the ball he's quite special. And I also the Ferguson one, was very torn between him and Cunningham South.
So with my scrum halves, I'm going for 2 guys I think can bring a lot of high tempo, speed of ball, and that's Jamison Gibson Park and Alex Mitchell. I've been very, very impressed with Alex Mitchell this last 12 months coming through with England, and I've gone for Thomas Williams as well. So I would imagine this is probably one of the more straightforward areas of selection.
Same 3 for me.
Same 3 for me.
Oh, there you are. So we move on to fly half, and this is going to be, I think, where a lot of our readers will have lots of fun and lots of debate across the country in rugby clubhouses. I've gone for Finn Russell, who I think probably will make most people's Lions squad and probably is the front runner to start a test side at the minute. I've gone for Marcus Smith as well, and again, a player who can cover at fullback, very exciting attacking talent, and a player who Steve Borthwick has invested heavily in. And my slightly left field pick is I've gone for Sam Prendergast, a player that has emerged really, I say from nowhere. He was one of the stars of the Ireland under-20s sides, but the speed at which he's been elevated into the Ireland side over the autumn clearly tells me that Andy Farrell, who ultimately is going to be picking his Lions squad, sees something special in this guy.
If you look at Prendergast's stats, limited though they are because of the number of starts, they're very encouraging. So you've got that. It would need, were there more established players outside that, then he would have to have an exceptional Six Nations. As it is, because you've got those 2 to start with, I think he just needs to show the development potential to be there. Because I don't think there's a third one that grabs you as much as Russell and Smith.
I agree with you. I think Finn Russell, at the moment, is head and shoulders above the other 10s. I think he's playing well. I think the fluency he gives to backlines impresses me. And when you've got really good players outside you, for me in a Lions context, that's important, because you can then really make the attacking potential of what you can bring to a defensive shape really varied. And I think he does that not just with the running game, but with his passing game and his close quarter decision making, where he'll isolate a defender very late. I think Marcus Smith is still learning that, for me, because he'll look at whether there's something on straight away and go for it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't bring that fluency to what potentially can happen outside, or maybe wait until you get your hands on the ball the second or the third time. But Marcus Smith, yeah, for me, would definitely be there. But my third choice is slightly different, but it's about playing in another position as well. But somebody that's really impressed me playing under pressure, and that's Finn Smith.
Yeah.
I really like him. I like watching him. He's big, he's physical. You know, he could play 12 in that respect. So that, for me, is a bit maybe left field, maybe not. I don't think it is.
I know.
But,
No, I'm a huge Finn Smith fan. I think he's, we're going to have this debate certainly at fly half for England for a few years to come. We'll move on to the centres, guys, and again another position, centre back three. We're going to have a wee bit of an overlap. Again, tough one, but I've gone Bundy Aki and Gary Ringrose, and again with Ringrose, you've got a player, brilliant reader at 13 defensively. He can also play on the wing, and just for me is one of those all-round guys. Bundy Aki will give you that ball. And then I've also gone for Sione Tuipulotu with Scotland and Hugh Jones as well. Again, good partnership there. But your thoughts, gents?
Same for me.
I went, it's combinations again, though, in a way. Is the two Scots, I think, are playing well as a partnership. Hugh Jones, I think, defensively, his game has moved on from where it was. That was his vulnerability out wide. They play well off each other. And, the other pairing that I've always admired and just seeing them, they're still on top of it, is the Henshaw-Ringrose partnership.
I think the Henshaw-Bundy Aki one was a close one. I think Ringrose of the
If you ask me tomorrow, I'll probably pick Henshaw. But I'm moving on to the back three then, guys. I don't know. Again, I find this tricky, and so again I've gone quite Ireland heavy. I've gone for James Lowe, I've gone Mac Hansen as well, and I have I find it very hard. I haven't picked George Furbank, and I know that's probably going to be a mistake, but you just can't fit them all in. Hugo Keenan, again, been a brilliant, outstanding fullback. Emmanuel Feo-Aboso, I think, is going to give us that explosive power. He's just been a revelation for England the last year. And I've gone Darcy Graham as well from Scotland. Again, another finisher who, I just think hopefully the kind of ball and situations we're going to creating for this Lions backline, he's a guy to finish. So that is my back three combination.
Well, the honour to you on certainly on back three.
I've Blair Kinghorn for me and Hugo Keenan are two who are just so positive from the back as well, but actually tidy and good under the high ball. And I think that's quite important in these back three positions with the wingers as well, which is why I didn't go for Darcy Graham.
Okay.
Because I think, if you've got Van der Merwe, James Lowe, and I did go for Feo-Aboso as well, you've got players who physically can stand the space and win the space, particularly now with the variation in law about what you can and can't do. You're far more open now as a ball catcher in that back three than you were 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. But also you want genuine finishers.
Yeah.
And I just think those three are genuine finishers.
Yeah. Blair Kinghorn is obviously one of the big absentee in my selection, and again with that, I think I've just gone with the fact that he's He's France-based, and it's just for me. Again, if I was the Lions head coach, I'd want to go as one, and the impact it has. I'm sure he will be expected to be involved in top 14 finals and things, and it's just a difficult one. And given the quality of the players, and actually as we get on to the wild card selection, it might explain a bit more. The wild card selection for our readers again is a lovely little tweak. It's any position, so it can be any position that we've left out or overlooked. For me, and it's probably in getting to the end of the backline selection, I've gone for Jamie Osborne, and who again, as we saw in South Africa last summer, can play fullback and did so magnificently against the Springboks, but also is a powerful midfield player and another player that we've seen Andy Farrell invest a lot into and has come through. And it's tricky getting into that Leinster backline at the minute, but he's a player for me that he's young, powerful, utility-wise, can answer a lot of questions that may arise during the Lions tour. But interesting to hear your wild card picks.
I'll give three names, and so I'd show you where my bit is open in a way, a little bit. I think Tommy Freeman is a player who can meet different criteria for what you might want under pressure on a Lions tour. So he was well to the fore in my thinking when I was looking at back three. And
you realise people were saying this is because you used to be a Saints coach, see, bias, see.
I know, yeah. The other one, yeah, strange enough, is Henry Pollock.
Oh! It's...
But you talk about a moment, it's not international, and I understand that, but he's under 20s, and just seeing him for Northampton, and he's the one player who is left field in the back row who would make a difference in saying, would he make a difference?
Yeah.
Therefore, I'd have to seriously consider him. And the third one, which is left field, who I just love watching, is Ebotoye for Bristol.
Yeah.
Well, there are two genuine bolters, as in classically defined. My one about Jack Willis is simply because, a lot of people will definitely have him as a starter in a test series. And I understand that. Yeah. My reluctance for that was the French connection.
Yeah.
Had it not been for that, then I think yes, I would have done that. It was just for that reason.
Gents, we're getting on to the final selection, and it's one that will be of huge interest when the real thing happens. Selecting the captains, and Geach, you have picked 4 captains in your Lions career. We've got Finlay Calder, Gavin Hastings, Martin Johnson, and Paul O'Connell. And interestingly, only one of them was a back. And my selection for this tour is Caelan Doris, the Ireland number 8 and captain now this year. For me, it was really coming down to him or Maro Itoje, and it's interesting that Itoje has just been named England captain, and this will put him again front and centre of people's minds. I'm sure he will look to prove me wrong during the Six Nations, but interesting to hear what you two have gone for.
Well, it will be interesting. In respect of both of them, and the Six Nations, could confound several of our picks that have been, eminently subjective. But I have not been around Itoje anywhere near enough to understand why the reluctance to pick what has been the best player on several occasions for several seasons has not been there for captain, because that usually is the case. Now, there must be something, whether it's reluctance on his part or other people's part. So to get that late on says to me, let's see exactly now how it does go. Whereas as you said, with Doris, it seems to be a more natural fit going through.
He looks like a
and I
natural
just say
leader.
this, it doesn't necessarily mean to say because you've got one country that's dominating selection, and probably quite rightly in most Lions years there is a standout country. It doesn't do any harm, but the important thing, I think, is that he has the respect from outside.
Yeah.
It can be either minor or major, but they've got to have the respect of others.
And that's exactly what came into my mind when you were talking it through, Gavin, that respect is the biggest thing you need and you can have.
And as a captain, by the way, not just as a player. You've got to see someone who's been a leader.
And I do prefer forwards because that's where you win the game. Yeah. And
they're constantly involved, aren't they? I've always said
this. And they get a feel for whether you're on the back foot or on the front
and
foot.
The refereeing thing is very subtle but very important. You've got to have a relationship with the referee. It's not you can't talk referees round conclusively, but you can just make things easier. If you're running from fullback all the time or wing, and I used to think with Owen Farrell, he's running in again to the referee saying, well, why are you there? Whereas, the number 7, who's always around the breakdown, just says a word as he's walking past on his way to the scrum.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to come in and out. And the referee's not thinking, he probably doesn't even register how many times he's been spoken to by a forward. No. Whereas someone coming from fullback, he notes every single time.
Yeah. And one of your particularly your back 5 forwards, it'll be in so many more of the game tight events where the referee will be close.
Yes. Yeah.
So just as Brian said, it is in conversation distance without it making, I've come up to challenge you.
Yeah.
It's just a little conversation because he's there and I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's where the really good captains manage that really well. And then it is important. If you've got that rapport, then you're back to trust between referee and players.
Gents, we've got to the really fun bit of this game now. So my selection has been made. When we hit confirm the squad, it compares my selection with Geech, your selection. If I click on Will Greenwood, it's got Will's selection. There's Brian. And the really fascinating thing from this is you can see the breakdown, nationality split we've got, and we've got experience split. Geech, you and I have both got 30% from England, slightly more Scots for Geech, fair enough. Slightly more Irish for me, fair enough. Wales exactly the same. You can see the age, interestingly, the experience split. Your squad's 27 to 30, which is probably just about right. And then again, you can see along the top here how many matches that we had. So all in all, Geech, you and I got 31 out of your 38. And then you can see the props. Hooker's the same. Back row. Scrum-half was the same. Fly half 2 out of 3. Again, and we can do the same. Brian, let's get yours up. And we can see 29 out of 38. Of my selections,
but I think
only 22% English, Brian. It just shows how open-minded you've been.
Absolutely.
But I also think it shows.
How have I got 24% Scottish? That's a mistake. I object now.
That shows maturity. But it also shows, though, the numbers in each area are not massively different. And that is, so when you're having a collective selection conversation, if there's 2 or 3 of you, actually, you're only talking the difference of 7 players.
Exactly.
So...
And as we discussed in all these things, there have been so many marginal ones.
Yeah.
So many marginal ones in the areas which are marginal. I think there are areas of much greater surety.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time and your thoughts, and I've really enjoyed this chat. And we could go on and on and on, and we've probably gone on far too long already. But it's been a brilliant to pick your brains, and I hope our readers will take something out of this, hearing your insights and what from a Lions player's point of view and a Lions coach point of view, what sort of the ingredients we're looking for to make a successful Lions squad. That's all from us today. I've made my selection, and it'd be interesting to see whether you agree or disagree. But what you should do next is head over to the Telegraph website or our app and have a go at yourself, and you can then see how your selections match up against Geech and Muro's as well. It should be a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy it.